Welcome to a bonus episode of Crazy Canuck Truckin'. I thank everybody for coming along. Thank Jesse James Dupree for the music. It didn't fall from the sky, Truckin' Uncle Sam. And as you can see, I don't have my co-host Size Matters Bridget with me today, but I am doing this because it is a very special day. And we wanted to talk to somebody who has started a journey that is very incredible. And while she's not really in trucking, she is in something else that really affects all of us, and that is, of course, farming. And she is dealing with things. And part of the podcast is about mental health and about how we survive and get through things and all the different things we can do. So, with all that said, in this bonus episode of Crazy Canuck Truckin', I want to welcome Maria Cox to our program, to our podcast. And Maria, tell us about yourself. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, I'm a sixth generation grain, livestock, and hay farmer in Whitehall, Illinois. It's in west central Illinois. And there I farm with my dad and mom. And we raise corn and beans and wheat. And we feed cattle here in Illinois, but also in the state of Kansas. And then we have a custom hay business. And I moved back here 8 years ago. I was previously living in some other states and went away for college and working in other places. But back in 2012, I was talking with my dad, and he was in his mid 60s at that time and thinking about, the future of our business. And I decided to quit my job and move back here. And I've been doing this for 8 years now.
So farming was something you had, that wasn't your big plan when you were getting out of high school. Is that right? Or farming with your dad was not the end goal?
That was not my plan whatsoever. I'm a twin, and my twin sister and I were born in 1984, and my older sister was born in 81. And things were pretty tough, financial wise, with the 80s when we were growing up. And then we had hogs at the time, and my dad ended up getting out of hogs in the 90s, and things just weren't that great. They were okay, they just weren't that great. And my parents really encouraged us, the three of us, to go to college, get a good job that had benefits, 401k, insurance, all of those things. So all three of us did go to college, and all three of us actually went to grad school too. But looking at farming, it wasn't my plan to go back and farm. I wanted to work in the ag industry doing something, but I guess it just pulled me back. Farm just pulled me back here.
What's your degree in?
I have an undergrad degree in agribusiness from University of Illinois, and then a master's in ag econ from Purdue.
Okay, so your schooling is helping you back on the farm then, right?
Yeah, I think so. I took a lot of marketing classes in college and finance classes and economics, and I think that helps just with the financial aspect of what we do.
Because when I follow you on Twitter and I see stuff that you're doing, and a lot of it is, at least the tweets I see are focused a lot on selling your hay and looking after that side of things. Is that an accurate picture of? And I see you on the. Am I right? Am I seeing you out baling? Mm-hmm. Or anyway, you're out there doing all the work as well.
Yeah, I mean, from a business standpoint, I own the majority of our farm business now, but I plant our corn in the spring, and I bale most of our hay, and so I do a lot of the operations too, and manage a couple of our employees, and pretty much do everything that falls under the umbrella of farming.
Yeah, that's really cool. So the reason I really found your story intriguing and very interesting and very heartwarming. Is a topic that is fairly near and dear to my heart. And why don't you just explain to our listeners why today, which is February 20th, is a special day for you?
Sure. Well, David reached out to me and wanted me to bring me on the podcast today because today, February 20th, is the day I haven't had any alcohol in 365 days. So it's my 1-year anniversary of no alcohol.
That is such an amazing step to take. Tell us about what it was like before. Were you how much of a big deal has this been for you?
I don't really know where to start answering that question, but it's been a really huge deal for me. It seems like alcohol and agriculture kind of go hand in hand. If we, David and I are both active on Twitter, and it seems like every day I see somebody posting something about alcohol and farming. It's like alcohol is almost like glorified or encouraged in farming. But for me, I'll see. What was your question again?
How big of a deal was it? And so you're saying it has been you answered that it has been a very big deal. How far, like, were you functioning well before? I don't quite know how to ask these questions.
Sure. Yeah. I would say growing up, I didn't drink any alcohol. And when I went to college, I didn't really drink until I was 21. And for several years after that, I think I was an okay alcohol drinker. I don't think it really bothered my daily life. It was just something that my friends and I did for fun. And then after college, I went into the corporate world, and a lot of the corporate world has conferences, meetings, dinners out, and there's alcohol involved there. And I think I was okay at that time too. But back in 2012, I moved back here to farm, and I think I was okay for several years. But I think in 2008, probably 2017 and 18, I think alcohol started becoming an issue for me. And in 2018, I was dating a guy, and I think that led to me more drinking because he was also a big drinker. But I'd say the probably the big thing that happened to me was 2019. And if anyone's listening who's a farmer, they remember 2019. It was really hard to get anything accomplished on the farm in 2019. And my mom was sick in May of 19, and I could barely get the corn in. It was the middle of June, and I still didn't have the corn in yet. And I started having lots of anxiety and almost panic attacks. Went to the doctor about that. And but then I kind of held it together. And then fall of 2019, my dad had a heart attack, and I was in the field. He called me, and I barely got him to the hospital. And so 2019 was just really rough for me. But I think I was holding everything together fine. And I don't think people probably noticed I had an alcohol problem, but it got to where, like, when I was younger, it was kind of a celebratory thing, something I did for fun with my friends. But there at the end, it just kind of became something that I would do almost daily just to take the edge off. and, just to shut down my mind for the day, just try to get through the day. Maybe that answers your question.
There's a lot of mental trauma. It sounds like that was pushing you towards that to try and help dull the pain. I mean, you had a lot of stuff to deal with. It 2019, for people that don't realize, in your area was just wet. I mean, it was horrible. You're just mudding stuff in, and it was not a good year. And then your mom is sick, and then your dad has a heart attack. All those things play on your mind. And I remember reading one tweet, where you said, you'd have a drink to celebrate something, and then there's a whole bunch of celebrations that would happen during the day, so to speak. Where you done the field, have a drink, get back to the yard, yay, we made it back, have a drink. Each little accomplishment was an opportunity to have a drink. And from what I remember reading there, that was kind of what woke you up and said, why am I doing this? I'm having all these all these times where I'm so-called celebrating, and it's not really cause for celebration.
But what really happened, 365 days ago, I never got in trouble with the, law or anything like that. There wasn't any big, legal thing that happened to me to make me, stop drinking. I'm active in my church, and I was part of the team for this retreat that my church had. And, we'd been preparing for this retreat for weeks. And, that morning I woke up to go to that retreat, I never thought that would be the last day that I would have a drink of alcohol. But, some people don't have faith, some people do have faith, but I don't think I could have done this on willpower alone.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. You need more than just yourself. So Bridget had sent in some questions, and one of them, I think you've kind of answered already, is that agriculture is a very alcohol-focused culture. And how hard is that on your sobriety?
I don't think it's really that hard for me anymore. I see things differently today than I have, in the past. But yeah, it seems like everywhere you see, there's, advertisements about support the corn farmers, drink beer. Those signs are everywhere. But I just don't pay attention to those things.
Wow.
And probably the main thing that has helped me through this year is I've really assessed my environment. And I haven't done any, Alcoholics Anonymous or anything like that. I've just had a couple friends that I lean on. And I've actually lost some friends through this too. I don't know if I've really lost them. I just don't hang out with them like I used to. I would say we're still friends, but I've really assessed my environment. And, some of that environment would be looking at social media about farming. And I don't look at Twitter as much as I used to. And I just look at the people I hang out with, the things I watch. It's been hard, but it's getting easier.
That's really cool to hear how you're going through that. Bridget also asks, who is your biggest cheerleader about sobriety and or farming? What you mentioned a couple of friends, so you want to give a shout out to them?
Sure. Well, my friend Nancy from church, I would say for about the first 3 months of this, we talked more than an hour. I mean, sometimes like 3 hours every night, because it was just a new friend that I made through church, and she gave up alcohol like 3 years ago. And so yeah, that was she's been really helpful to lean on. And not every day is fun. Some days are really hard. So it's really nice to have people like that to talk to. And then probably a family member, I would say my dad. He's been good. And this is a really like touchy subject for some people to talk about. It's a very private thing. And I actually didn't tell my dad for a few weeks that I quit drinking. And once I did start talking about it, he didn't realize that I was drinking when I went home every day, because I live alone. And when you live alone, you can do whatever you want and no one knows. So my dad didn't know. I mean, all he would see would be us, I'd have a couple beers in the shop with the guys at the end of the day, but he didn't see what happened, what that went on at home. So my point here is my dad's been really cool about it. And it's not every day is easy, but every so often I'll talk to my dad about it, and he'll say, Maria, you're just a better person now. And that's kind of all I need to hear. So I know I've done the right thing when my dad says I'm a better person and just better to be around. And I think I'm a better manager too. I'm more on top of things with the farm, with the book work, with the plan for the day. I show up on time and have a plan for the day. And I never really was late for work, but sometimes I just didn't want to be there, if you're feeling bad. And
and that shows through in your performance or talking with the employees. If you don't want to be there, you don't have to say that, they can tell.
Yeah, I think I'm just setting a better example. But then again, I don't talk about it that much because I don't want to make a big deal about it. But I mean, this is the first time I've talked publicly with anyone about it, I guess.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, because a lot of times there's a lot of stuff I didn't know here, of course. But when you think of alcoholics, you always think of the falling down drunks, the ones that are an obvious problem. You don't often hear about cases like yours where it was much more hidden. Maybe a lot of people didn't realize, and yet to still stick to your guns and to do it the way you've been doing it is definitely something that's very tough. And you're doing it, and as well as you're doing something that is amazing and getting the message out there, because we don't hear from people like you as often as we should, because it, like you said, you try not to make a big deal of it. Other people didn't realize. But to me, it is a big deal. If you had continued on in the same way, maybe you would have. It's possible to become one of those statistics, or not be looking at your farm or your business close enough, and things go downhill with that. It affects so many things. And to stop it before it becomes so blatantly obvious.
Yeah, I don't know if I was an alcoholic. If I am an alcoholic, I don't really use that term. I think what I did have was some sort of dependency or some alcohol use problem. And like I said, it's just a sensitive topic and hard to talk about. And, I've thought about talking it online, like on Twitter before. I have a few thousand followers, I thought, well, might as well talk about it on here. But I just, all along, I kind of wondered if I could really stick to it for a year. I didn't want to jinx myself by talking about it. And I think people don't talk about these things either because they don't want people to think that they're weak. That it's like there's some weak, Maria's weak. She can't handle just having a drink or two.
Oh.
So but I'm not weak at all. I'm very high performing person, and I don't think I had some sort of character flaw or weakness that made me get this dependency on alcohol. I think it was just more of a stress, and I did not know how to handle the stress of, farming there for a couple years. I just had some personal things happen that were affecting me, but I can talk about it now. I mean, I'm not weak. I'm strong. Definitely. But I had this alcohol use issue.
Yeah. Well, see, that's very similar to what we deal with people that have mental health issues. And it was the same thing for me. When I started talking about my mental health, a lot of my close friends didn't realize how bad things were. And there is that, we always say with mental health issues, sick, not weak is one of the hashtags, right? It's not fun to deal with some of these things and to talk about some of these things, but I can tell you from firsthand experience that getting your message out and getting my message out about mental health and getting people to realize a lot of stuff can be hidden. There's a lot of hidden pain is so important. And, people have come to me and with my journey, and it's like, wow. And I struggled with that for a long time. I thought I was just weak, because I couldn't handle certain things. And that's far, far from the truth.
Yeah, that's kind of part of the reason I think I am going to talk about it a little more now, because there has to be some other people out there like me. If I would have maybe seen someone talking about alcohol, some farmer, if I had seen some farmer talking about it, it may have, spoken to me. But yeah, I think it's just important that people realize that they're not alone. And I felt so alone. I thought that this was just some problem that I had that no one would understand. But I bet there's others out there. I just got to the point where I always, had a cooler in my truck. And at the end of the day, when we were done baling hay, we'd all have some drinks, but I wouldn't stop then. I would go home and continue. And then you just wake up the next day and you think about doing it all over again. And I know that I am not alone. This farming is very isolating, and I think we can hide things so much easier. Like I said, no one really knew that I was, drinking.
Oh, I know other cases, Maria, and I won't. I'm going to keep them private, but I can tell you that what you have gone through is nothing new, and that there's a lot out there that are dealing with this and are going to love to hear you speak up about it, because it's going to resonate with them. And it's broken up so many family farms. I call them closet drinkers, and I think that term has been used elsewhere. You don't realize, and it's not just farmers, it's can be many other people, like very high functioning people can be very high functioning and still have these issues. And so another question Bridget had was, any suggestions for those who might be struggling or afraid they're struggling and want guidance? And I think you answered part of that was, or I should say, part of that is something I'm going to say, that you getting out and speaking is going to help those who think they might be struggling. So for you, Maria, then what would you say to people that come to you then and say, I think I'm struggling with this. What do I do?
Well, I'll explain a little bit what I did. So the global pandemic was happening right when I quit drinking, and Alcoholics Anonymous was not. There were no meetings. People weren't meeting. We were supposed to stay at home. The world essentially shut down. So what I did, I had my one friend Nancy that I talked with several hours a day, but I also dove into books. Now, I went online and I Googled books about sobriety, books about alcoholism, and I think I read 7 books there. At the beginning, I was obsessed with reading these books about alcohol, and the one that resonated with me the most was called This Naked Mind. And I refer to that now. So what helped me was talking to some people who have gone through this before, and also reading. And I kind of did it on my own, I guess. I didn't have any group type therapy or anything. So talking to my friend, reading, and I just really changed my environment. I was never a person to go to bars, but I would still occasionally. And, so I stopped doing that. I stopped doing things that made me uncomfortable, or places that would make me think about drinking. I just really changed my environment.
Wow.
But I think if someone is looking for some help, I think a lot, from what I've read, Alcoholics Anonymous does help a lot of people. But that's how I did it, through friends, reading, and just changing my life, the people and the places.
See, that is so strong. Like to do what you've done, Maria, and to have, people ever want to say, well, you can't handle things because you took a drink. Look at what you did there. Look at what you just ended up telling me, was you decided, okay, I'm going to change. And you've taken all the necessary steps to affect that change. And that is incredibly strong, that you can do something like that. Wow. I'm even more impressed than I was before.
Oh, thank you.
And by the way, I love your dad. I love that he recognizes and talks to you about this, because it's not very common for people in their 70s, to talk about things like this, especially old farmers. We're not always very receptive to new ideas. I'm not quite an old farmer yet. But.
Well, it's made my dad, made our relationship a little closer, I would say, because my dad thinks, back in the 90s, when my sisters and I were kids, my dad says that he used to deal with stress by drinking back then. And so we talk about those things.
Yeah.
Now, and I I mean, another thing that I did was I just kind of along the way, I would make notes, and I have this notebook here, if I had some sort of epiphany or something, or if I had a bad day, I'd write things down. And like on day 37, I wrote down like 20 things that are better about my life. But then if I look into like day like 180, so what's that, 6 months? So if I look at day 180, I have 6 months was hard. I have a tsunami of urges to drink. So that was 6 months ago. So it hasn't been easy.
So one person like you, Maria, is holding back a tsunami. That doesn't happen very often.
Well, I talked to I have this Christian counselor that I talk to every couple weeks, and he talks about a tsunami. It's like these waves are crashing. I never necessarily had urges to drink. It was just more. It was basically farm stress. So the stress of managing our business, the stress of the weather, those stressors are what would make me want to drink to kind of take the edge off,
Yeah.
And so all these waves are crashing, right? And they're just getting harder and crashing harder. And when you're in the middle of that, you're like, I just want this to go away, But then I was thinking, I can't drink because it's not gonna help me long term. So anyway, the waves eventually slow down and then it gets calm again.
Yeah, that's true. That an analogy I've used many times with depression and with mental issues is that the hard times don't last. So it can feel like you're in the midst of a storm and tsunami, like you're saying. Those times come to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And to keep that in front of our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
When I'm in the worst, when I'm in a really hard time, I keep that before me, that this isn't going to last. After the rain comes the sunshine. It may be 6 months of rain, like 2019, but eventually the sunshine comes back.
Mm-hmm.
And do I want to give up because I've had some times of rain in my life? Am I gonna throw away all the sunshine that's gonna come because of some hard days?
Mm-hmm.
And it's during these hard days that I really understand how strong I am and the changes I can make, so that when the sunshine comes, I'm far better.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, around here, whenever we have a wet year, farmers figure out which fields need better drainage, and it helps them for years afterwards. But if they would just give up and throw in the towel, then those fields would continue to be wet and continue to be a problem in the years to come. So it's through these hard times that we really learn to become better people and to take the lessons and apply them in the future. But hanging on at that time is not easy. And it takes that mindset. For me, I have to prepare myself every day that I'm not going to let stuff stop me. And that sounds like the same thing you've had to do. You changed your behavior or changed the things you do, started reading books. You've done whatever is necessary so that when bad times come, you're able to hold on in that.
Yeah, it's been a really long journey, and it's just it's a long process.
You look at day 365 compared to day 180. What does that look?
Looking back, I know I have a lot more clarity, and clarity is a big thing. And I just keep going back to environment and the people that I hang out with. I have new friends now who don't drink, and it's just so cool to be around other people like that. And yeah, like I said, it's been a really long journey, and people have asked me, well, when are you going to drink again? Well, like last year, I said, well, I'm going to give up alcohol for Lent last year. Well, when Lent was over, people asked me, well, are you going to drink again? No, like I don't plan on drinking again. I mean, I've come so far, and I don't want to go back to day 0. I'm at day 365, and I just don't want to go. I don't want to go back to that person back then. I think I just look different than I did a year ago. More clarity, just just little things like it's so hard sometimes, but then other times it's easy. But like just real quick, this example, I went to the accountant yesterday, and I haven't seen our accountant in probably 10 months. And I walked in there, and she said, Maria, you've lost weight. And I said, well, thank you. And she says, well, something else is different about you. Is it your hair? You look so good. I just can't figure out what's so different about you. And I said, well, you know what? It's been 365 days since I've had any alcohol. And, when people, it's been a struggle to get to where I am today. But when people who I haven't seen in months just say things like that to me, I just know that it's worth it.
Wow. What more do you need to hear, right? What more do you need to hear? That's amazing. Is there one event or something interesting, something funny that you can think of that's happened in the past year that you've enjoyed because of your sobriety, or anyway, just something lighthearted to finish off our conversation?
Well, but probably 10 years ago, I used to ride a road bike a lot. And when I moved back here, I essentially put my road bike in my garage, and the tires like dry rot, and the bar tape on the handlebars, it dry rot and peeled off. So this summer I decided that I was going to start biking again. And so I went and got my bike tuned up, and I've been riding my bicycle more now, and I've met some cool people riding bikes. So that's been a cool thing that's happened. I forgot how much I loved biking. And now that I'm not drinking, I have the energy to bike. I want to do that. And biking is something that, takes hours. You can bike for hours, and it takes energy, and you need to be on top of your game when you're biking. And I can do that now. So that's been really cool.
I remember a tweet from you saying, are there any bikers out there? Something to that effect, right? And I remember that. And now you know that there's quite a biking community out there on Twitter and on out doing road trips in places. So that's pretty cool. I love biking. I don't get to it as much as I want to.
Road biking is the best.
Yeah.
It's after biking for a few hours, I mean that feeling is it's the best feeling. No buzz that I've had from alcohol beats that feeling.
Yeah. A friend of mine is a police officer in Canada, and we know about the stresses involved with being in the police force these days, and she does that to help combat the stress. Now, she actually does a lot more than that. She does triathlons. I think she even did an Ironman. So she's pretty crazy, but good crazy.
I'm not that crazy. I'm just a weekend warrior bicyclist.
Yeah, well, it's all good. So I'm going to wrap up here. Thank you very much for being on. Any final thoughts before I close this out?
I think I've said enough.
I want to thank Jesse James Dupree and Dixie Inc. for their music, It Didn't Fall from the Sky. And thanks to Bridget for helping out with some questions. And thank you very much, Maria, for coming on and speaking to me about this. I think it's going to be something very well received, and people need to hear it. Even if you don't hear back from as many people, which I think you will hear back from a lot of people, there's going to be a lot of people that are touched by this and are very inspired to do whatever they need to do and whatever challenges they have. So thank you very much.